Bruce. Good morning, everyone. It gives me great pleasure to wish everyone a happy new year and let it be a happier, healthier year than last. Welcome to the Treasure Coast Unitarian Universalist Congregation. I'm Deb Harris. I'll be the worship associate for today, January 3rd, 2021. We're happy to have the Rev Bob MacDonald back in our pulpit today. And I'd like to also extend a big thanks to those who helped with the service. So Bruce Ruby, our music director for our beautiful music. Corina Pelloni, our Zoom host, who keeps us all together. And Janet Grout for worship backup. As you know, we will mute everyone, or you're muted now, and we'll keep you muted for the time being. We are a welcoming congregation. We welcome people of all gender identities, races, ages, and backgrounds, and we're very happy to have you with us today. Our Zoom services are 11 o'clock every Sunday. Announcements and a link for the next Zoom service are in the Friday online newsletter. To be put on the email list to receive announcements, go to our website, tcuuc.org. And while you're there, you can also use the link to make an online donation. Or if you prefer, you can mail a check to 21 Southeast Central Parkway, Stuart, Florida, 34997. And thank you very much. Bob will now light our chalice. The chalice lighting words this morning I've adapted from Lois Van Leer. We light this chalice on the brink of a new year, gratefully letting go of what has been. May we be open and hopeful for what may come. May we begin this new year renewed, restored, and ready to live life fully anew. May we move forward with intention. May it be a year of blessings. As a longtime admirer of Fred Rogers, I know that Reverend Bob is a fellow fan. The title of a recent article in the Huffington Post caught my eye. It was by a Dr. John McCarthy, entitled, "I Invited Mr. Rogers to Dinner. A few months later, I got a beautiful surprise." So that caught my eye, and the message seemed really appropriate as we begin this new year. I've excerpted some, and I'll read some verbatim. He begins by noting that Mr. Rogers wasn't cool when he first appeared on PBS in 1969, at least not in my neighborhood. His TV show was for the less than mature audience. As the last born in a family of 8 kids, I was the designated channel changer for my older siblings, and I can still hear the instructions, the demands, turn, every time his show popped up on the local PBS station. Even within my neighborhood group of friends, a true insult was telling someone, "Go home and watch Mr. Rogers." That line would crush any boy's ego. The message was clear. If you wanted ridicule, watch Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Fast forward to the start of my parenthood. Spending mornings with my young daughter, I found that 30 minutes of TV time fit perfectly in between breakfast and our walk around the block. Unfortunately, the 9:30 a.m. PBS slot was filled by, of all shows, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. The trolley was back to haunt me 30 years later. Besides which, I now lived in Pittsburgh, the real life home to Mr. Rogers. Yet, this version of Mr. Rogers was different, or maybe I was different. The older me had learned about child development, lifespan theories, and brain development. I had worked with children. I'd studied creativity. Perhaps most importantly, my vision had changed. I now saw the world as a parent. Mr. Rogers' neighborhood had become pure magic. It had a beautiful simplicity marked by a wonderment for the world, a curiosity about things taken for granted, and stories of people working through problems. Mr. Rogers embodied a spirit of unconditional care and acceptance, a fervent faith in children, and a calming gentleness that communicated safety. His present-focused manner was the antithesis of the stressful, multitasking world of parenthood that I had come to know too well. Fred Rogers became a central figure in my emerging fatherhood. My daughter and I sang his songs during our morning strolls. We played in the local children's museum in Pittsburgh, dedicated to his program. When visiting Idlewild and Soap Zone, a nearby amusement park, we saved the best ride for last, an actual trolley that featured characters from his show. Then Dr. McCarthy goes on to explain that he had this brilliant idea from Mr. Rogers that he was going to start inviting people from his neighborhood to come to dinner. He decided to start with Mr. Rogers himself, and he wrote him a letter inviting him for dinner. His wife poo-pooed that and said that'll never happen. Months went by, there was no response to the invitation. And then soon after, the news came that Mr. Rogers had passed away, thus never being able to come to dinner. But one day, sometime later, he was stunned to find a letter that Mr. Rogers had written to him in the early stages of his illness that had been forwarded from his associate producer. Now I'll go back to his voice. The one-page type letter was akin to something from an old friend, personal, gracious, and caring. He apologized for not responding sooner and told us that he was honored by the invitation before saying he couldn't attend. He appreciated my daughter's enjoyment of our television visits, mentioning her twice by name, and expressed gratitude for my comments on the program. The letter, framed and prominently mounted in our home, is a treasured gift. His heartwarming gesture 17 years ago means all the more to me during this year of pandemic, a time of such despair, distress, and isolation for so many in our neighborhoods. His note inspires me to be a better neighbor, to make it more of a point to greet people by name, recognize birthdays, and offer random acts of kindness to unknown others in my community. His parting gift motivates me to teach my daughters the importance of neighbors in the world. I hope they become ambassadors of his spirit as they navigate adulthood, finding avenues that lift others' spirits even in seemingly small ways. Mr. Rogers didn't have to write me that letter. He didn't know me, and my rather outlandish dinner invitation didn't merit a response, particularly in the last weeks of his life. Yet his kind words touched my life and rippled out to others, including my daughters, colleagues, and friends. He never came to dinner, but in the end, he shared much more enduring gifts with me, believing in others, hoping for the future, seeing true dignity in humankind, and knowing that, when least expected, sometimes the best presents in life come from a special neighbor. Thank you for taking the time to be in touch with me, he wrote at the end of his letter. No, Mr. Rogers, I am and will always be the one thanking you. And now Bruce will play and sing hymn 26, Holy, Holy, Holy. The Zoom is out of sync for music, so sing joyfully even though you're muted.
Holy, 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 author of creation, early in the morning our song shall rise to thee. Holy, 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 merciful and mighty, who was and is and evermore shall be. Holy, 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 though the darkness blinding, hindered by our vanities, we have not eyes to see. Only thou art holy, there is none beside thee. Perfect in power, in love and purity. Holy, 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 author of creation, all thy work shall praise thy name in earth and sky and sea. Holy, 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 merciful and mighty, who was and is and evermore shall be.
And now let us share together our affirmation, saying the first verse and singing the second. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
From all that dwell below the skies, let faith and hope and love rise. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung from every land by every tongue. Amen.
And now it's time for joys and sorrows. I will move a stone in our symbolic river that's here on my desk to mark each joy or sorrow. Please keep your joys and sorrows brief and personal. Raise your hand to share. Corina will unmute you to speak, and then mute yourself when you're done, and she'll continue to call on people one at a time. So I have our stones, and they'll go into our symbolic river. For anyone whose joys or sorrows are too private to share, know that our hearts are with you. And now we have our pastoral reading with Bob.
This is from the hymnal entitled To Risk. Author anonymous. To laugh is to risk appearing the fool. To weep is to risk appearing sentimental. To reach out for another is to risk exposing our true self. To place our ideas, our dreams before the crowd is to risk loss. To love is to risk not being loved in return. To hope is to risk despair. To try is to risk failure. To live is to risk dying. Anonymous. Some moments of silence. I forgot to mention a joy with which I ended the previous year. On Thursday afternoon, New Year's Eve, I got to marry the former administrator for a brief while, Micah Hartman. Micah was here for a while, a few years ago, and those who remember might recall she had a security detail named Max. So we got Max and Micah here for a while. She married a guy named Joseph Raskowski. They changed their last names to be both Hartkowski. Anyway, it was a great joy to marry them. And I ran to the kitchen where Jackie Vitale was putting the meal together. And I said, Jackie, I'm really in the marrying mood. And she said, no, I have a boyfriend. I'm just there now. Anyway, it was a wonderful end of 2020. Now we'll have a wonderful addition, I think, to our service. I've invited the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, and they will sing Gunos Sanctus. Thank you, Corina. I'm going to trust I'm unmuted. At first, I thought I should aim at insights, if not profound, at least honest about what new we might hope for and work toward in this desperately awaited year 2021. I won't bring up resolutions. You remember New Year's resolutions. I can't go there because I can't tell you how many have told me, no resolutions this year. This isn't the year to look for willpower, meaning I guess willpower might have been AWOL in previous precedented years anyway. And it seems all willpower is committed in the fight for survival. Weight issues will have to wait. Nor can I complain about how fast 2020 went by, because it didn't. I think my mom or Nana used to say a watch clock doesn't budge, or was it a watch kettle doesn't boil? It wasn't the clock, but that damnable count on the right. It didn't inch upward. It leapt or leaped, one of those. Unlike the other years of my retirement, the golden years, I used to ponder aloud, why is time racing by now that I'm getting old? Not 2020, oh no, it quarantined with us, like that hurricane that passed over, then came back and stayed for maximum damage. Today, I want to think about holy, sanctus, what that means to us, what that does to us, what that does for us. Ministers used to talk about the North Star. As Polaris guides the earth on its axis, so our faith is like our guiding star. Two stars lined up on the evening of December 21 and got our attention because it wouldn't happen again for like 800 years, and we would likely miss it. I've read that President Clinton got a piece of moon rock to display in the Oval Office, especially for times when heads of state were disagreeing about something he thought they could budge on. How important are our unbending certitudes in light of the age of that rock? That reminded me of two relics I brought back from a site, an archaeological site in North Israel called Bet Shean, a Roman colony. Anyhow, this was a handle. If that's a mug handle, that was a rather large mug. But anyhow, this was, they thought, from that area. And then also I was allowed to take this piece, which is actually 3 layers. Can you see that? Hold it up. Can you see it now?
Yes.
I'm going to throw it at you, Bruce, then you can see it. Anyway, it's got 3 layers, and they said this was Roman because it was more advanced. What does that do for us, having old things like that? Well, it puts life into perspective, that life does take a while, and it comes from a long time ago, and hopefully it goes on. So I began the year circling around holy, what it has meant, what we need it to mean, some thoughts anyway. The word holy has strayed for a long time into what we might call unholy territory or jargon. It had been yoked to cow, as in holy cow, and not referring, I don't believe, to a world religion that deems the cow as sacred. Holy cow was popularized by what famous shortstop? Jack Cassidy could tell me that, but he doesn't watch us on Zoom. I've heard holy attached to Toledo. Never been there, but I don't think it's a pilgrimage place. I'd ask you what else you've heard holy attached to, but I'm afraid you might tell me, so I won't. It's like that word that by now has probably entered the dictionary and is overused today. Oh my God, one word. Neither the O nor the G is a cap. And it's not the beginning of a prayer. Holy and oh my God seem to express a little bit of startled or surprised. My dictionary predates this jargon and texting use. Holy means declared sacred by religious use, or entitled to religious reverence. So its synonyms are sacred, consecrated, hallowed. The Latin language for it has sanctus, sacer, and salvus, meaning whole. Salvus, the root of salvation, whole. The German word as in stille Nacht, heilige Nacht, and the Latin salvus suggests to me a link between holy and healing and becoming whole. OMG, I've dragged you back to an era of link I'm comfortable with. Link between holy and healing. In theology, the Judeo-Christian tradition used to be called salvation history. In German, that was Heilsgeschichte, the history of holy. I said that over and over again in college. I thought it made me sound collegiate. Just like smoking a pipe, I thought, made me look collegiate. That lasted about 2 days. I liked that idea, history of wholeness, because I think religion is about our becoming whole people, and life is a journey toward holy and wholeness. And for me, the only holy that matters, holy with an H, has got to be related to our wholeness with a W. And it is a journey, and hopefully a lot of open-mindedness and learning on the way. So it has been a journey with inklings or wows that may be fleeting, but are sustaining for the long haul. One I remember was right after the birth of my firstborn at Yale New Haven Hospital. That was before fathers watched the birth. That was okay with me. But on the way home, I saw the sun coming up like I had never seen it before. And it was like the dawn of creation. It didn't last, but it didn't have to. I got it. I still like that Heilsgeschichte, a narrative, a history, a journey to our wholeness and to our healing as individuals and as a community. In all honesty, I wrestle with what holy means. A light bulb went on a long time ago when I read somewhere that Protestants and Catholics understand holy very differently. Even if you don't consider yourself either, you might find this fertile for thinking about holy. I read that Catholics tend to think of holy and sacred in terms of substance, entities, locations. And Protestants tend to think of holy and sacred in terms of function and relationship. Substance means you can locate holy in something. Function means holy isn't in something, but how relationships go. I know that sounds like a quote from that philosopher, Forrest Gump. Holy is as holy does. An easy example. Can water be holy? In one of my baptisms early in my career, brand new and beaming parents brought their precious little part of creation forward for baptism. I looked down at the bowl and realized I had forgotten to put water in it. If I had been smart, I would have just gone ahead as if there was water in it. Instead, I called to an usher and asked him to bring me a glass of water from the church kitchen faucet. After the service, the father of that baby asked me if the baptism was valid with only water from the faucet. He said, "I thought all you ministers got water from the Jordan River for this." I didn't tell him, but it just so happened that I had water from the Jordan. On my first visit there, before we went to the river, a popular baptism and recommitment site, our leader had said to bring a little container to scoop water if we wanted. The only thing I had was a little bottle left over from my El Al flight in. It was labeled Gordon's. You could say that little bottle started out as fire water and ended up as holy water. But when I got it home, I looked at it, and it was quite dirty, not fit for sprinkling on any head. Because I am a Protestant and find holy to be in function in relationships where it leads us, not in location, I didn't feel particularly closer to holy all the times I've been to Israel and to those towns where supposedly Jesus slept. No, it wasn't he slept, Washington slept. Jesus went and preached and did things in the reports. I didn't feel closer to holy there. The one time I knelt at the Wailing or Western Wall in reverence, I wanted that experience to invite some sense of holy. But instead, I was tapped on the shoulder as I prayed, and it was a Jewish fundamentalist emigre from Ohio who wanted me to bring a message back to Reagan and Jerry Falwell. I wanted to quiet him, so I asked him to write his message in my travel diary. He did. He wrote, "What America needed was a few well-publicized executions of gays and adulterers." I had really been looking forward to that wall, but its holy went away faster than I could. If holy is about our Geschichte, our journey toward wholeness, what have we learned in the past year of torment and loss? Where might holy lead us in 2021? I was touched on Christmas Eve when Joanne shared the meaning of the family pictures she had just received, making that her best Christmas. Our need has never been clearer, and realizing that opens us to ahas we might miss otherwise. There have been so many statements in the press and on air of the insights during these dark days. One of you sent me a video of a statement, a poetry reading by Dhruv Shah. What if 2020 is the vaccine? Teaching us, he said, what is important, teaching us the value of me time. That reminded me of one of our saints here, Martha Mickelson, leading us through a book by one of her saints, her Northern UU minister, Forest Church. Forest Church had a mantra in his book, Love and Death. The mantra, be who you are, do what you can, want what you have. Whatever we mean by holy, it will remind us what has been good about our lives and made them worth living, and what has sustained us through some deserts and dark days. Even that story of manna in the desert, sustenance through the interminable wilderness, makes that point. Manna translates, what is it? And we need things in life that elude definition. like your significant other and mine. I've heard long-term couples say they can complete each other's sentences. I stifle the urge to add, my experience is that loved ones like to complete their own sentences. We're all different. Even our children, whom we made, find ways to convey they are their own, so we blame their other maker. Our experiences of holy certainly underline our diversity and our incompleteness in our experiences of nature, of people, of historical breakthroughs, of historical breakdowns. We still find teasing reminders that we aren't done and we don't want to be until we are. Our closing hymn, 175, we celebrate the web of life.
We celebrate the web of life, its magnitude we sing, for we can see divinity in every living thing. A fragment of the perfect whole in cactus and in quail, as much in tiny barnacle as in that great blue whale. Of ancient dreams we are the sun, our bones in stone to scar. For bind our future worlds to come with words that were and are. Respect the water, land, and air, which gave all creatures birth. Protect the lives of all that share the glory of the earth.
Before or as I extinguish these closing words, the wonder of life is life itself.
The postlude this morning is the prelude in F major by Johann Sebastian Bach and the English Suites.